My favourite MCU film is Captain America the Winter Soldier, from back during the excellent Phase 2 era of the franchise. There's a lot to like about this film. It's more of a modern conspiracy thriller, with some Jason Bourne-level intense fights thrown in, and of course, plenty of big action set pieces and explosions for good measure. Steve Rogers has to come to terms with the modern, complex military and political warfare of the 21st century, exposing the long-time infiltration of S.H.I.E.L.D. by Hydra, which would have significant implications for Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV series, and of course, Winter Soldier was a smarter film than most of the MCU films, with a well-thought-out motivation for the antagonists.
Hydra was founded on the belief that humanity could not be trusted with its own freedom.
Hydra believed that after the Second World War, humanity's freedoms had to be taken from them by encouraging the populace to sacrifice their freedom for security. This has to be something that humanity would consent to, because forcing outright authoritarianism and dictatorships upon people would only make them rebel and fight against it. It's the frog in the boiling pot effect. Place the frog in the boiling water and he jumps out of it. But place the frog in a cold pot of water and slowly increase the heat, and he'll sit there until it boils him to death. Stupid frog.
What we did not realize was that if you try to take that freedom, they resist. The war taught us much. Humanity needed to surrender its freedom willingly.
Just like a clandestine deep state menace, Hydra worked covertly in the shadows within S.H.I.E.L.D., with operatives secretly coordinating their efforts across the organization.
For 70 years, Hydra has been secretly feeding crisis, reaping war. And when history did not cooperate, history was changed.
Hydra began to gradually manipulate world affairs to create and exploit crises, economically and geopolitically, and through generating national hostilities to bring about wars.
Hydra created a world so chaotic that humanity is finally ready to sacrifice its freedom to gain its security.
Through various subversive means, Hydra created a world of chaos, a world so unsafe and unstable that it requires heavy policing, government oversight and state control in order to bring it back to order. And as Zola points out, the populace at large will be willing to consent to giving up their freedoms and submitting to more government control in order to keep them safe.
By holding a gun to everyone on Earth and calling it protection.
As a quick aside, one of the strategies that would-be authoritarian governments are willing to do in order to further cement their subjugation of the populace is to initially appear to resist public calls for more government intervention. If nefarious state forces generate a crisis that requires the state to bring in special emergency powers and curtail many of the rights of the citizenry, the government can initially pretend like they don't wish to do so, like they're reluctant to compromise the freedoms, privacy and rights of the public. As the state-controlled media pumps out state propaganda designed to scaremonger the public into more panic and uncertainty, the public will begin to ask questions of their politicians. Why aren't they doing more to protect the safety of the people, etc.? This controlled opposition media might even ask softball questions of the government, like why haven't they taken action already, etc. It's ultimately all just collusion. The authoritarian government ultimately gets what it truly wants because the public begin to demand the government intervene and implement whatever policies and actions are required to bring the manufactured crisis under control, even if that action requires the removal of personal freedoms. The populace believes this emergency will pass and that their loss of freedom is merely temporary. But of course it isn't, because from the beginning, the purpose of the manufactured crisis was for the permanent removal of personal freedoms and liberties in order to achieve ultimate control of the public. Once the current fake crisis passes, another will be manufactured in order to justify the continued oppression of the citizenry.
Once the purification process is complete, Hydra's new world order will arise.
What Zola is likely referring to here is the final phase of the authoritarian regime, the imprisoning and/or eradication of political dissidents, any anti-establishment voices and activists through one means or another. For example, freedom of speech is, after all, a threat to the power of a tyrant. Hydra had plans to take out anyone who represents a threat to Hydra, and they use a sophisticated algorithm to do so, as explained by Jasper Sitwell.
What targets?
You, a TV anchor in Cairo, the Undersecretary of Defense, a high school valedictorian in Iowa City, Bruce Banner, Stephen Strange, anyone who's a threat to Hydra. Now, or in the future.
The algorithm is also capable of making predictions about who might become a threat to Hydra in the future based on their past data records or online activities. It analyzes all of this and makes determinations accordingly.
The 21st century is a digital book. Zola taught Hydra how to read it. Your bank records, medical histories, voting patterns, emails, phone calls, your damn SAT scores. Zola's algorithm evaluates people's past to predict their future.
The Winter Soldier was a great film for many reasons, but what makes it unique is that the central threat isn't some otherworldly supernatural one. It's actually a very believable and entirely realistic human one. Okay, yes, there is Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, with his superhuman strength, but in truth, he's not the primary villain, just a henchman being brainwashed and used by Hydra, the true primary antagonists. I wish the film had expanded more upon these themes of manufactured crisis, authoritarianism, and sacrificing the freedoms of the populace for more security, because part of me wonders if it hasn't just become much more relevant in today's world.
This isn't freedom. This is fear.